Hey folks, this is Keough, and I haven't done one of these video logs in a while, so I wanted to take some time to talk about something that I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks in relation to my own training. And so the topic of what I hope is going to be a pretty short video log is, for this particular video, it's your psychological relationship to your training, but more specifically the interpretation of data and how that facilitates continued growth in training. And it has taken me some time to realize this, but I've sort of had a crash course in coming to terms with this aspect of my training over the last couple of weeks, when I've just been rebounding from an injury and also returning from a previous meet. But there exists for you in your training data that can be interpreted however you wish. And the goal, I think, from a psychological standpoint for any athlete, but particularly for an athlete in a strength sport like powerlifting, is to interpret that data in such a way that it ensures continued progress. And that's very difficult to achieve because data oftentimes is interpreted on the part of the lifter either to facilitate a state of hubris or narcissistic self-belief that is out of touch with reality, or is used to facilitate self-doubt, which ultimately will end up hindering further performance and further improvement. And you can take as an exercise any lifter on the planet, and you can read the data in such a way, the data that surrounds their performance and their abilities, you can read that data in such a way that it diminishes the accomplishments, the potential, the training and meet performances of that particular lifter. And so you can take someone like Dan Green, for instance, who's more or less a consensus choice for, if not being the best raw lifter on the planet, certainly on the short list for being one of the best raw powerlifters on the planet. And you can look at his performance and you can say, number one, when he broke the world record at 242, he only broke it by 2.5 kilos, and so even in his own weight class, he has lifters who are very much competitive with him. Number two, you can say something to the extent of, well, he cuts a tremendous amount of weight. He cut a lot of weight to make 220 in February, and so his performance is obviously going to be inflated in comparison to those lifters that don't have the same ability to cut tremendous amounts of weight in a 24-hour weigh-in span of time, and then put that weight back on in order to make a weight class. And so that subset of powerlifting contains a very large body of powerlifters against whom you cannot compare someone like Dan Green. And you can also look at even his competition in the 220 weight class and in the 242 weight class. He broke Andre Belayo's 220 world record in February at Raw Unity, and he did so with a 2099 total, but Andre Belayo's done 2091 weighing, I think, something like 203 pounds. And Dan Green, you're talking about somebody who competed at around 255, 256 when he competed at Raw Unity. So you're talking about a difference on the platform of about 50 pounds in body weight. If you look at his competition at 242, Zahir, forget his last name, the guy that throws a tantrum at every meet he does, he just did, as a light 275 at a powerlifting meet, he just benched 617 pounds. And so he's fully capable of breaking that 2204 or whatever it is world record at 242, and he's somebody who's benching around 100 pounds more than Dan Green. So even Dan Green has people in his weight classes who are basically taking his third attempt as a warm-up in their warm-up room, and they're not just specialists. I mean, they're legitimate full meet lifters. And so you can do this exercise with literally everybody on the planet. I don't think there's a single lifter who you couldn't do this exercise to and really diminish their accomplishments as a lifter. And so your goal in interpreting the data that surrounds your performance is to construct a relationship to that data in which you enable rather than disable your performance. And again, two ways of disabling performance or ensuring that you won't make continued progress. Number one, to construct a hubristic relationship to that data, and number two, to use that data to instill self-doubt. And so that's something that I've been really struggling with over the last few months, and I've really been working on it. But I'm looking at myself now and my performance recently, and I'm saying to myself, well, I did 319 on the bench at Royal Unity, I did 330 in training, my bench constantly goes up. Rather than feel like I've made previous mistakes that haven't allowed me to make fast progress on that bench press, and I'm only now sort of realizing what exactly I need to do in order to get stronger at this point in time, maybe I should see this as a suggestion that my ceiling on the bench press is much higher than I thought it was, because honestly I thought at one point that I was going to top out as a 330 or a 340 bencher. I didn't think my ceiling was that much higher at 148. Well, the data suggests that it is, and I just have to be patient, and I'll continue to make big steps towards 350 and 360 and 370 and 380. I mean, there's no reason why, if you can gain, after a meet, if you can gain 10 pounds on a lift max in 6 weeks, just by training a different way, at roughly the same body weight, there's no reason why I can't bench 50 pounds more than I am right now in 10 years, because it just wouldn't make sense for me to gain 10 pounds in 6 weeks and then struggle to gain another 40 pounds in 9 years and change. It just, the law of diminishing returns shouldn't work like that. It shouldn't drop off that steeply, that quickly. And so, obviously I have a much higher ceiling on the bench than I thought. I've never known how to squat, and I recently squatted 405 for the first time since I got hurt. And 405 I woke up that morning at 159.6. That's a pretty unexceptional squat for my body weight for no reps. And there are a lot of recreational lifters that are doing that, and there are probably well over 100 people just in this country alone, 100 guys at or below 160 pounds that can squat at least 405. You know, the number might be well over 100, and so it's a totally unexceptional lift, to be perfectly honest with you. But I've been training for a while, and the fact that I'm not a very good squatter right now, that doesn't suggest that I'm eternally doomed to be a bad squatter. What that suggests instead is that if I make the appropriate technical changes and I really focus on starting to learn the lift, then I have a much higher ceiling, you know. And so I feel like I have a lot of room to grow in that lift. So rather than be discouraged, you know, I did a 1405 total despite not knowing how to squat. And what's going to happen once I do learn how to squat. I feel the same way with my deadlift. You know, I deadlifted 601 in a meet and 562 at this last meet, despite really not ever feeling comfortable with my deadlift programming. I've never felt comfortable with it. And now I'm trying a new methodology for programming for my deadlift that maybe it won't work out, but maybe it will. And if it does work out, then my ceiling's much higher. I went from 573 to 601 in just one training cycle. It's just changing one thing with my deadlift programming, really increasing the volume of my training and lowering the intensity. And so if you can gain 30 pounds in a cycle, why can't you pull 650 in another 10 years of training? It just doesn't make sense that you could gain that much progress that quickly, and then all of a sudden to double that progress or triple that progress, you wouldn't ever be able to do it. It just, I wouldn't expect to gain 30 pounds every cycle, but again, the law of diminishing returns suggests that those returns should diminish, but diminish at a pretty linear rate. They shouldn't all of a sudden fall off a cliff. And so this has been the exercise that I've been doing. For me, for my psychological prep for a lot of my training, it's been trying to interpret the data in such a way that it encourages performance. And I do feel like the work that I am doing on myself right now is helping, and I wanted share this with everybody in case it helps anybody else. But anyway, keep checking in. I'll have more videos for you very soon.